Ranking every sniper support in Warzone from meta to garbage. This will show you the best weapons to pair with your sniper on Fortune's Keep, Rebirth, and Caldera. Welcome back, I'm Austin, and these rankings will be based on the weapon's overall performance, showing their versatility from close to mid-range. I'll be going over every SMG and AR because that's what you should be pairing with your snipers. And starting off with the Modern Warfare weapons, we're going to be looking at the Fennec, which goes into below average because the damage per mag is too low to sustain it with a sniper as the secondary weapon. Now the PP-19 Bison kills a little bit slower, but what it has going for it is a really big damage per mag, and it has pretty low recoil with pretty good range for an SMG. It's only going to be viable just because the time to kill isn't good enough necessarily to keep up with ARs past close range or really good SMGs up close. The MP7 is going into competitive because this thing is really easy to aim, you have a really fast fire rate, you also have a good time to kill up close and a decent one at long range, while still having pretty good mobility even though it's a Modern Warfare SMG. The ISO and Striker, these are just both going into garbage. I don't really have time to spend talking about these because there are 66 weapons that I am going over. Just don't use either one. The Modern Warfare AUG is going into competitive because this has the best time to kill so far if you use the NATO ammo at 630 milliseconds. It's really accurate. The only problem with it is going to be that it has absolutely horrendous mobility when you use the 60 round mag. But that's what you're going to have to use with it being a sniper support, but it absolutely thrives when you're shooting it. The Uzi, this one's a little bit weird. You have to use a 32 round mag if you want to have like a decent time to kill up close, but then your damage per mag is a bit low. I'm going to put it in below average or maybe niche. I'll throw it in niche just because of the 32 round mag being pretty good in solos. The P90, this is going to be kind of similar to the Bison. We have almost the same time to kill. We also have good damage per mag. It's just going to be a little bit slower than SMGs up close and a little bit slower than ARs at long range, so it's not quite going to be nice, but it will give you a fighting chance. Now we're at the Modern Warfare MP5. This one, I don't know whether I should put in viable or competitive, but I'm only going to throw in viable because it's really only going to work on Rebirth or Fortune's Keep because you have about 8 meters of range of an insane time to kill where this weapon is going to perform amazingly. But then after that, the time to kill drops off into just being horrendous, and you're not going to be able to compete with any ARs or an SMG with better range. But if you're a super aggressive sniper on Rebirth, you could get away with using this. The CX9 is basically an MP7, but it just has 5 millisecond faster time to kill up close. They're both really great as a sniper support option. Now the FAL, I'm throwing this one into niche because it can be really good or it can be really bad. You've got to have a good trigger finger and you've got to be hitting your shots or else your time to kill just drops off tremendously. The Grau is going below average. The time to kill up close is 820 milliseconds, which is horrendous. You're not going to be able to compete with any single SMG up close, and your mobility isn't that great. Now the M13 I think is a slightly better Grau if we're talking about our time to kills, and they're both really accurate, but the mobility of the M13 is going to be even worse than the Grau. I'm going to have worse damage per mag, so I'm also going to be putting this in below average. For the Odin, we're talking about slower mobility ARs, this is it. But the difference is this one can actually get a pretty good time to kill up close of about 700 milliseconds, which is going to be average for an SMG, but our mobility is really slow. So I don't think I could call this competitive at all, but maybe viable. It's like right on the brink of below average and viable. I'm going to throw it in viable and be nice to it just because no one uses it. Now we're moving on to the Scar. This is going to be niche just because the ammo can only be 30 rounds in the mag, so damage per mag is awful, but the time to kill can be really good. Kind of like the Uzi, we can use this in solos, but nothing else. The Ram 7, this is going to be the best Modern Warfare AR sniper support, I think, and it's still only going to be viable. Your damage per mag is a little bit low, but it's accurate enough to aim, and you have a really good fire rate, and the TTK is about average, so it's decent. The M4A1, this is sort of going to go in the same realm as the Uzi and Scar because the only way this thing can work as a sniper support is using the 32 round mag that gets the fire rate up to 1000 RPM, and it lowers our time to kill to sub 700 milliseconds up close, and then it's actually pretty good as a sniper support, but the damage per mag is way too low, but in solos, it can work out very well. FR556 for the FAMAS, this gun is just awful. The Kilo, this is sort of like the M13 and Grau, but I think it's even worse because the time to kill up close isn't better than the M13, and then also your time to kill after the first initial range is already over 1000 milliseconds, and it's going to drop off again. The mobility is bad, the time to kill isn't good. Tomorrow for AK-47 is sort of a little bit version of the M13 Ground Kilo as a sniper support, not as a long range AR. I want to make that clear. Those are all much better and definitely better than below average, but this Mara for AK is probably a viable sniper support because you get a decent TTK up close and a decent one at long range. The mobility isn't great and the accuracy is a little bit harder to use, but you will stand a chance fighting against other weapons. AN-94, an even better model for AK-47 if we're talking about a sniper support, and it is going to go into viable. I would say it's a little bit worse than the RAM, but definitely manageable if you hit those first few bullets when the fire rate's a little faster. AMX, they nerfed this into the ground. I don't need to say much. It's garbage now. I'm still upset about it. And now the AS-Val, this will be a niche sniper support. The mobility is awful, but once again, we only have 30 rounds in the clip, and it can be used in solos very well, just nothing past that. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, please make sure to like the video, and then subscribe if you want to see more tier lists like this, top 10s, or comparing weapons directly. Now let's move on to the Cold War weapons. The Lapa, another weapon just like the AMAX that they nerfed on the ground for no reason, and it really upsets me. It's garbage as an SMG, it's garbage as a sniper support. Now the MAC-10, this one is going into below average. Even though the mobility is great and we have an average time to kill for an SMG, the damage per mag is absolutely horrendous, kind of like the Fennec, but it kills even slower, so I can't really call the MAC-10 a viable sniper support. The Cold War MP5, this is an interesting one that I kind of have in the same ballpark as the Modern Warfare MP5, but a little bit worse, so I'm going to throw it in viable. Pretty much you have to hit one headshot to get a good TTK up close now instead of an average one, but you still have the issues with range, and I'm actually just going to grab the OTS-9 and throw it in the same section. It's identical to the Cold War MP5. We got the same time to kill, same damage per bullet. The OTS just fires 1 round per minute faster. Now the Bullfrog, this is going to go straight next to the PP19 Bison. I don't need to explain it more other than it's a slightly better Bison. LC10, this thing is just a garbage SMG, but I think I'm going to move it up to below average as a sniper support. If you didn't know, this has the slowest time to kill among every single SMG in Warzone at 825 milliseconds, but its time to kill at range only drops down to 900 milliseconds, which is pretty competitive with ARs, and it's really accurate. So I'll throw in below average, but up close, you're just going to be outclassed by everything, including a lot of these ARs, including the M13 and Grau. The Milano, competitive SMG sniper support. It's super accurate. Its time to kill up close is 726 milliseconds, so that's just slightly below average, but at range, we're competing with all the ARs. It's super mobile and super accurate. Definitely a competitive sniper support. The AK-74U, I'm also going to be calling this one competitive just because it is fairly accurate. Its time to kill up close is above average. It's 688 milliseconds, and I don't think it's too hard to aim. I think its mobility is what truly holds it back, as well as you need to hit a lot of chest shots to get the top end time to kills. Now the KSP, I don't know, this is in between garbage and below average. I'm going to be nice to it and give it below average just because, you know, the KSP gets no love, and it's definitely not as bad as these weapons. The Tech 9, this one is going to go into the same realm as these other SMGs that are only good up close and then their time to kill drops off insanely, but we actually get better range than we would on the Cold War MP5 or the OTS and better time to kill. So I would put it in front of those two weapons, and it's definitely decent as a sniper support. Cold War PPSH, very competitive. We have some of the best range among SMGs with 18 meters on this thing, and then we also have a slightly below average time to kill up close, but then we have a really good one at long range. I can't put it meta just because I don't think it's accurate enough to use past 25-30 meters, and as a sniper support, I really like it to be able to be used out to 50. The nail gun, this thing is normally, I would put a niche as a sub, but as a sniper support, just garbage. You have terrible mobility, 20 bullets in the clip, you can't put a single attachment on, it's kind of just trash. I don't have an image of the UGR, so the AM63 is going to represent it on the chart. Kind of just an average weapon all around, so it's going to go into viable. There's nothing much to say about it, it's just decent. FFAR, this is definitely a competitive sniper support, and I'm going to tell you why. It has some of the fastest TTKs among ARs up close. The mobility is what holds it back from being meta, but you should still be using the FFAR as a sniper support on Rebirth or Fortune's Keep. Now these next three weapons are going to pair together. I got the FAR 83, the 1911 is going to be the Vargo, and then the Krig 6. So you know I just talked about the LC10 being very bad, but it's accurate. That's how the FAR and Vargo are exactly. They both have the same exact TTKs as the LC10 up close and at long range, but worse mobility, and if that's below average, these two are going to have to go into the garbage tier as a sniper support. And then the Krig 6 is actually a slower time to kill at both ranges, so therefore it's also going to be garbage. They're basically LC10s but with worse mobility. Now the XM4 actually is going to have a slower time to kill than the LC10 at both ranges, but it actually has really elite mobility for an assault rifle, and it's very easy to aim, so I think this is better than these other few down here, so I'm going to throw just into the below average category. It used to be a very meta sniper sport, but they nerfed its TTK up close tremendously. The Grav and AK-47 are both similar weapons, but the Grav is better. The AK is going to be a viable sniper support, and the Grav is going to be a competitive one. This thing has a 720 millisecond TTK up close, which is going to be faster than the PPSH and the Milano, as well as a lot of these SMGs down here. But then at range, it's going to have a superior time to kill to all of these other weapons, while also being pretty easy to aim, so the Grav is definitely a competitive sniper support. The QBZ, I always have been a really big believer in this one. It's also going to be competitive. I'm going to tell you why. It's the most mobile AR in the entire game. The time to kill is definitely above average for an assault rifle up close, and the TTK at range is good, but it will be outclassed by some of these SMGs and other assault rifles. But we're going to have better mobility than all of them, and it's also really easy to aim. The Groza, this is basically just a worse FFAR, so it's going to go into the viable category. The C58, this is actually going to be a garbage sniper support. It's an elite long-range AR, but its time to kill up close is equal to its time to kill at long range, which is 864 milliseconds. Is way too slow up close to be used as a sniper support. The EM2 is a weapon that can be very competitive as a long-range AR, but if we're talking about a sniper support, only very good players can make it viable, but the average player it's going to be below average for, so I would not suggest using this. Now we've made it all the way over to the Vanguard weapons. The M1928, this is a weapon that people don't realize can be that good. I'm probably going to end up making a video on it, but you can get a 605 millisecond TTK if you put on the correct attachments, which is very competitive up close, but it's only viable because you can only use it for about 12 meters before the time to kill really drops off and isn't good. Now I finally am going to make it to my first meta sniper support option, the Owen gun. You got to use it correctly with the shrouded barrel, and then you have really good range on it. You get a 686 millisecond TTK up close, which is above average for subs. You get an above average TTK at range, and it can be really accurate as well. Now the Vanguard PPSH, I did just recently find a build from one of my friends that can definitely be competitive as a sniper support. The damage per mag will be a little bit low, which is why it's only competitive and not top meta. The Type 100, you would have to use a different build than people use it as a sub, because that recoils way too much to be considered a viable sniper support. But if you build it out to have a slower time to kill, you can make it really accurate, and it will still be considered viable because you'll still be around an average time to kill at close and long range. The Sten, I don't really know how to feel about this one. I think as an SMG, it's very competitive, but as a sniper support, it will be below average. Now we're going to get to the MP40, and this one might upset a few people because it's very popular to use as a sniper support. I only think it's viable there because if you don't build it out to have the really fast time to kill, it's going to end up being just about average. You're not going to have really good range on it either, and your damage per mag isn't going to be that great, so I don't see why so many people use it as a sniper support. First one's going to be the Blixen, but the image will be the top break. Right now, it is absolutely the best sniper support in the game, and it's meta, but I do think they're going to nerf it into competitive in the next couple days, but for now, it's the best. The Clouser will be the Armaguerra, and this is a very competitive sniper support because it has great damage per mag, a good time to kill up close while being super accurate. It's definitely one worth using. And finally, the Machine Pistol is going to be the Well gun. This is only going to be a viable sniper support because your damage per mag is super low and your range isn't fantastic, but you get a really good time to kill up close, and it's really easy to aim and very easy to use. The Cooper Carbine, this is going to be the best assault rifle sniper support in the entire game of Warzone, and definitely better than the Owen, so I'm going to rank it right at the top. You can make this thing have an insane TTK up close of under 660 milliseconds, a great fire rate, and it's super accurate. Only problem is damage per mag, but it's so good at everything else that it has to be meta. The Bar, just garbage as a sniper support. Elite has a long range AR, but sniper support, terrible. The Automaton's also going to be a garbage sniper support. Your TTK up close is 864 milliseconds like the C58, and that cannot compete with any SMG or any AR that's higher on the list. The SCG-44 will be a viable sniper support if you use the correct ammo type, and it's going to still be very accurate, and you'll have decent mobility. The Volk, this thing can be very competitive if you build it correctly. It has amazing mobility just like the QBZ, but you can technically get a better TTK if you put on the right ammo and the correct attachments. The NC41, right now this gun is absolutely BS and definitely a competitive sniper support. It would be meta if it was a long range AR, but up close the TTK is just slightly below average, so it's only going to go into competitive. AS44, meta sniper support. This thing's time to kill can be so absolutely insane that it's worth using, and you can build it out to be accurate enough. The Eat Your Burst, surprisingly after the buffs, you can get a decent TTK up close, so it's going to be below average, but the long range time to kill is absolutely horrible, and it's not that easy to aim. Now we got two more ARs from Vanguard that I don't have the image of. The first one's going to be the Rat, and it's going to represent the KGM40. Great as a long range AR, garbage as a sniper support. Nikita, this thing can get a very good time to kill, but your mobility is actually going to be comparable to that of the Fin LMG, so it can only go into viable because the time to kill is so good, and you can still aim it pretty easily, but the mobility really holds it back. And then make sure to click on one of these two videos if you want to see the LMGs ranked or the SMGs ranked as exclusively up close weapons. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.